Hello folks, welcome to another WeNeedASaga test ride. Today I feel very lucky because I'm able to share with you this bad boy, the brand new Scrambler Ducati Desert Sled. Now pretty much ever since the Scrambler came out, this is kind of the bike people thought it was supposed to be. And what I mean by that is, this is a bike that you can genuinely take off the beaten track and really have a bit of fun on some dirt roads with. Ducati have made an absolute ton of changes to this bike over the road-going Scrambler models, which I'll talk you through as we go over the test ride. But for now, I'll just say it looks stunning, it's raining, it's probably good weather for this to try it out, and I can't wait to see what it's like, so let's get going. Alright, we're away on the Desert Sled. Now before I get started talking about the Desert Sled, I just want to do a big shout out to Shane and his team at Sydney City Motorcycles. I've got a partnership with Sydney City Motorcycles and they're the ones that let me test ride these bikes. So if you end up enjoying the review of the Desert Sled, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. That'll let them know that you're watching and then you appreciate it, and hopefully they'll let me try out a few more bikes. So the Desert Sled. I'm super pumped for this bike because if I was in the market for a Scrambler, on paper, this is the one I would be interested in. This is the genuine do-it-all Scrambler. So, you remember that green thing, the Urban Enduro that they released with the first batch of Scramblers? That had a couple of superficial nods to off-road riding, but the reality was, you didn't have a chance of taking that thing off-road. It just wasn't made for it. And if you did anything more than a smooth fire trail, you were going to get yourself into trouble. The cool thing about this is Ducati listened and they brought us the Desert Sled. Now the whole name Desert Sled is an homage to those original Scrambler bikes where blokes just took their road bikes, put some knobbly tyres on them, and took them out sledding in the desert. So the whole idea of this bike is that you've got a proper dual sport, dual purpose machine that you can ride around on the tarmac like I am now, but you can also smash on some dirt roads. Sounds like a pretty good formula to me, and whilst I won't get to test it on dirt roads today, I'm going to take you through the changes they've made that would help this to be a better dirt machine. Now this is the highway entrance. This is where I generally do my acceleration test. You've got the same 803cc engine from the previous Scramblers, and it's a great engine for this sort of city road riding. You get about 75 horsepower from the air-cooled V-twin. But more importantly, you get plenty of low-down torque as well. So it's a very tractable engine, makes a lot of sense in these city road riding situations. Before I set off this morning, I took a high-quality sound clip of what the engine sounds like, so I'll splice that in now to give you a feeling for what the Scrambler Desert Sled sounds like. So there you go, it's got that familiar Ducati V-twin burble. Nice amount of noise, I reckon. So yeah, the changes. Let's talk about all the things that they've updated on the Desert Sled to make it a better off-road machine. The first and probably most important one is the suspension. So on the standard Scrambler you get 41mm forks up front that are non-adjustable. First thing they've done on this, 46mm, much beefier. fully adjustable, and much more suspension travel. So you get more ground clearance. I don't know exactly how much more ground clearance, but you get 6 inches of suspension travel on the standard Scrambler. On the Desert Sled, you get 8 inches of suspension travel. So you can imagine if you're going over potholes, rocks, anything other than a smooth paved road, that beefed up suspension means you get a better ride, you get better compliance over those bumps, and you've got the ground clearance to actually take the hits. Similar story at the rear end. You've got a completely revised rear shock over the normal Scramblers with heaps more travel and fully adjustable. So it's certainly got the suspension credentials of an off-road bike. Next thing, they've lengthened the swing arm. And again, I'm no engineer, but I'm told the reason they do that is because it improves the compliance over those big bumps. Next thing, they've reinforced the frame. So the frame in standard form, again, not really equipped to take hits. And I believe people with urban enduros were complaining about that very fact. So they've reinforced the frame to help cope with that. They've also updated the mud guards. You've put a grill over the light. Basically, they've given it a serious shake. They've done all sorts of stuff to make this a better off-road machine. If you've not seen one of my videos before, I call this the car park test. This is where I come and just do a little low-speed U-turn to get a feel for its maneuverability. I'm always a little tentative doing this because it's too late when you've dropped the bike, but here we go. First gear, fast idle, bit of rear brake. Oh, lost the balance. But that was my fault, not the bike's. So yeah, these big high handlebars, they help a lot. They give you that good leverage at low speed. Despite the bike's higher center of gravity, it still feels very maneuverable at low speed. Okay, so next thing I'm going to talk about on this bike is the ergonomics, because when you get on it, it does feel completely different to the full throttle I rode a few months back. I'll flick a link to that video here in case you want to watch my thoughts on the full throttle. But yeah, the ergonomics feel significantly different. So, like I said, much higher ride height, and I think they've actually padded the seat quite a bit more as well, because the seat feels higher off the ground or higher off the chassis as well. So you've got that ground clearance there. The bars, same sort of thing, they feel very high. They feel similar to my WR Dual Sport in terms of where your hands fall. They're quite high up. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to just go into a standing position, because if you're serious about taking this off-road, you want to be able to get in a good position when you're standing as well. That's going to be important on this bike. So let's see what it feels like in a standing position. Yeah, not bad. Your knees kind of fall naturally in towards the tank, so you get a decent grip on the bike. I don't know if they've actually made the bike a bit taller for that, because it does feel like you got a bit more. Yeah, standing feels pretty natural on this thing. Like I said, because of the high handlebars, you do feel like you can take a standing position. I'm a bit bent over, but I'm super tall. So I think people around 6 foot are going to find a much more natural standing position than I'm in right now. But yeah, standing's not a problem on this thing, feels fine. They have made some other changes to help with the off-road business. You've got crash protection underneath, you've got some guards on the coolers up front here, and you've also got a 19-inch rim up front. That's the other thing to note. You've got a 19-inch rim, which again helps a bit more with the bumps, and it's narrower, so that helps cut through in those low grip situations. Another handy little feature. As for other elements of the bike, it feels very familiar. It feels a lot like the full throttle I rode. So you've got this nice crisp throttle, and plenty of torque from this 803cc twin. You've got exactly the same instrument cluster. You've got the same brake setup on the front, which I'll note is a good quality item. It's half of a Panigale braking system, so it's perfectly adequate for what this bike's going to be asked to do. So from riding around here, it's obvious to me that this is a very livable road bike. In doing all of these things to make it a better off-road bike, I don't think it's lost any of its road manners, which is a big plus because it means that if you don't take this bike off-road a lot, you're not going to feel like you wasted your money, you know what I mean? It's still a good tarmac bike. It's still got really good road manners, plenty of pull to do highway miles. You can still use it as an everyday bike. But what I will say is, if you do think you're only going to use it on the road, I would probably get one of the other Scrambler models like the Icon or the Full Throttle. And the reason being is you're going to save a couple of $1,000s because all of this extra stuff that they've put on the Desert Sled, it's not free. This one is going to be a bit dearer than the other models. So if you don't need it, maybe look into one of the other Scramblers. Having said that, I love the fact that this genuinely can go everywhere. Because, you know, there was a lot of criticism of the original Scramblers that it was more marketing guff and you couldn't really take these bikes anywhere without destroying them. This thing is not the case. This is a proper dirt capable machine. And let's face it, if you rock up to the trails on one of these, you're going to be the coolest dude there. This thing could not look more different to like a Honda CRF or a Yamaha WR or something like that. This thing is in a league of its own in terms of styling. I mean, I think that's worth talking about just for a second. The styling on this thing is so cool. Like, I know it's personal preference and it's an opinion, but I think this thing looks absolutely awesome. The little accents on the bike, the gold wheels, the proper knobby tyres, it just looks completely unique. You're not going to mistake it for anything else. So what are its competitors? Like, if you're interested in one of these bikes, what else should you be looking at? To be honest, I'm not totally sure, because every bike that it's similar to is different in some way. You know what I mean? Like, I know Triumph do a similar thing, the Triumph Street Scrambler, I believe. But I don't think they've gone to the same effort as Ducati to make it an off-road worthy bike. So if you want that extra 20% off-road capability, I think the Scrambler is going to have that beat. So then I guess the major competitors are like the proper traditional dual sport bikes. Like, I mean, for the kind of money you're spending on this, you can get like a Husqvarna 701, a KTM 690. You can get one of those sort of bikes instead. So that's going to be a tricky one, because those bikes really do have the edge in an off-road sense. While we're stuck here in traffic, we might as well have a chat about that. I think that's going to be an interesting decision for some people, because like I said, they've done a heap of stuff to make this Desert Sled a much better off-road bike. So you can do it, but there's no escaping the fact that it's 190 kilos. I think that's what's going to put some people off. So those bikes I was mentioning just before, Husky 701, KTM 690, you know, you get a similar amount of power. You get like 70 horsepower from those bikes, but they only weigh 140 kilos. So there's a huge weight advantage over one of them compared with the Desert Sled. So I think, let's say a Husky 701 or a KTM 690 is the genuine 50-50 bike, half your time on the road, half your time in the dirt. I think this is going to appeal to the 70-30 kind of rider. I think this is the I do still spend most of my time on the tarmac, but I love going off-road and I want to be able to do it on a regular basis. I think those kind of people should have a good think about a desert sled because it's just so cool. Again, you might not go on the narrowest, craziest trails, but you're going to look so good doing it, and you've just got this totally unique, cool machine to do it on. Man, I could think of worse ways to get around. This is so cool. This guy loves it. He's having a good look. Geez, I feel like I've almost run out of time riding around talking about this bike today. Lots to cover, but I hope that gave you a bit of a feel for what the desert sled's all about. Like I said, I reckon it's the 70/30 dual sport. That's the best way I can describe what I'm riding right now. Great road manners with plenty of off-road potential. I do these test rides on a reasonably regular basis, so if you want to keep up with them, see what else I'm reviewing in the near future, hit that subscribe button down below and then you'll get notifications when the videos come through. I've also got a couple of playlists where you can look at all my previous reviews if you're interested. Thanks again to the boys at Sydney City Motorcycles for lending me this bike. And if you're in Sydney looking for a bike, go in and have a chat to them and see if they can help you out. Alright folks, hope you enjoyed the video. That's all for this one and I'll speak to you guys soon. Cheers.